50-50. If you know what that is, raise your hand. Sweet. This is gonna suck. Luckily, I'm really good at teaching, so I can get us all through it. I've been doing a lot of arm locks that feel like leg locks. So we're gonna start off with an arm lock that feels like a leg lock because we have this thing, as humans, we're really good at identifying things with our arms, and we're really bad at using our legs because we're just not monkeys. And so if we do an arm lock that feels like a leg lock, I think the leg lock at the end of class will be easier to identify and easier to accomplish. Everyone track? Makes sense, right? Perfect. So we're gonna set up a triangle arm bar that I do very often when I roll, and to me it feels exactly the same as a heel hook. And the really cool thing is it gets us away from this idea that I want to rotate a heel hook, because I don't, right? I want to isolate the heel and anchor the hip and then bridge into the knee to cause break, right? When I rotate, that's when we get that gator roll down the mat and the person escapes. So we'll start off with the arm lock, and then we'll go backwards in time, and we'll do our basic 50-50, and then our backside 50-50, and then I'll give you guys 2 entries to enter backside 50-50 and see if we can accomplish all of that. I kind of told myself 10-minute increments. So we have 6 10-minute classes to do. Yeah? And if you guys can't master it, you're off the team. End of class, we'll have 2 people. That'd be awesome. So let's start there. We're gonna go from this kind of bottom side triangle position, right? So I'm in what we call Williams guard right now. So I have an overhook on my leg, and I grab her shoulder. All I'm gonna do is step over her shoulder and triangle. Okay? That's it, right? You give me that look all the time. I look at you immediately and I'm like, oh fuck, shit. Right? So this is gonna feel challenging with this arm trapped. So for the sake of the drill, just move the top side arm to the bottom. Now we have all the space in the world. Okay? So this is our leg lock positioning on the arms. All right? I'm gonna grab her palm, put her elbow all the way into my hip, and I'm gonna hug, right like this. From here, all I'm gonna do is bridge straight forward, and it's basically like an Americana. All right, it's a bent arm lock that attacks the shoulder, possibly the inside of the elbow, but either way, to me, this feels very much the exact same as a heel hook for me. Okay, so our entry, let's turn a little bit. It's just gonna be Williams guard. Step over, figure 4. Yeah? Top side arm goes to the bottom. That can happen before you figure 4 if you'd like. We're just drilling this, right? This is not like a full technique yet. What is this? I'm like a fucking squirrel. Okay, we put the elbow into the hip pit, and I hug it nice and tight. I don't want to bring the arm to me. My whole body comes to the arm, and I compress everything here nice and tight. From here, I'm just gonna start expanding, and I get my tap, right? It's really key that I don't try to bring the arm to me, because I'll get the tap kind of too early, or she'll straighten her arm, and I have to chase it. The exact same thing happens with a leg lock. I have to keep the leg bent. So I bring everything into her, like this, really tight. Now, I take all the tension out of the submission by packing it in. Right? So I've compressed everything, and now I add a small amount of expansion, and the tap happens. If I relax this, the range of motion goes really far, and I lose everything. So I keep the elbow anchored. I create this nice kind of Z pattern in her arm, hug, and bridge for my tap. Can we start there? Yes. Let's do it. Ready? Do it. Let's bring this in. So again, this technique alone is a whole seminar, okay? So let's not overthink it. The goal here is to understand that when we attack somebody in this scenario, we're going to anchor with our legs, anchor with our upper body, and then break with our hips, all right? So as a smaller person, I always want to use my hips to break everything. So anytime I can take my arms out of the equation by locking them nice and tight to my body, then I have less joints. Yeah? Joints are weaknesses. Whether you're offensive or defensive, your joints are weak. And so if I can eliminate joints by figure 4 in my legs and figure 4 in my arms, then I can have everything isolated. Yeah? And so now I'm basically reduced to 2 big joints, right? I have my knees and I have my hips. This is yoga. Look at this. So that's what I want to do. Right? I have strong hips, and even a big, strong guy, my hips are going to beat their biceps every time. Okay? So that's the goal, is to get to our major muscle groups and avoid using all these long noodles. Okay? So let's change topics completely. Let's go to entering or figuring out what backside 50-50 really is. Okay? And so 50-50 is going to be just a leg entanglement that we can utilize gi and no gi. But in this scenario, we both have equal amount of attacks and defenses. Okay? Make sure it's really important that we don't have one leg to the outside. Say that. Like this. All right, this is double outside ashi or DOA. This is also a leg lock entanglement, but in this scenario, make sure our legs are equal. Do you guys see the difference? All right, so here, she has 2 legs on one of my leg. Both legs to the outside. Here, same exact idea, both to the outside, but now we have an equal entanglement. Yeah? So, we'll start off sitting in 50-50. Now all she's gonna do is step over. She's gonna step this way, over. That's it. All right, so this here is backside 50-50. So if we turn, so we're sitting in regular 50-50. She steps over, right here. So I have to make sure that she's on the mat, not on top of me. And I'm gonna turn my body so that I'm cheated towards the mat. Okay? The more I turn myself perpendicular and then facing up, the more she wants to fall back to regular 50-50. Okay? So the crux of the position is my body weight keeping her here. Okay? Now it's much more challenging for her to backstep because I'm laying on top of her leg. As I turn here, I'm almost forcing her to backstep. And this is not what I want. Okay? If we look at what the position offers us, standard 50-50 really is a true 50-50, where she can attack my heel, I can attack hers, and we're really equal. The person who's a better defender usually wins because they can defend while also attacking. Yeah? When we flip this to backside, now she has almost no attacks on my legs. So my legs become very safe. I can have my legs completely unlocked, and she can't attack them. Okay? So it's a vastly different position based on whether she's seated or kneeling. So our goal here is to find this right here simply by entering 50-50 and then stepping over. So if we go like this, that's the easiest way to enter. So do that. That was awesome. Right? So all of this, hug her leg and have her step over. I'm not going to touch her heel at all. So no risk of injury here. Once we get to here, I would like her to be that way more. So I'm just going to turn right to here. So I'm mostly belly down, my knees are down, I still have her knee line secured, and we're here. Yeah? So it's very, very simple to enter in this scenario if you can scoot like a fucking idiot. So everyone scoot like a fucking idiot, and it'll be awesome. Let's start there. Ready, go!
Okay, right? Yep. So now I would try to go that way. Yeah.
That was great. So this will never happen. Nobody will ever do this. It's not real, right? This is like completely hocus pocus. But it's important to identify what the position feels like, because that becomes, in teaching this for a long time, that becomes the point of failure for everybody. Okay, it's not being able to identify the finishing position. And we spend so much time learning how to enter the legs via either K-guard or X-guard that we do a very, very nice entry, and then our break at the end is very poor because we don't really settle into the right position. Yeah, so we have that now, but I promise you, if somebody steps over like that whilst in 50-50, then you should like immediately break them and then cheer because they're an idiot, and it's fun to beat idiots. So, speaking of which, so let's talk about a real entry here. Okay, so don't forget, when we finished this, the person was sitting next to us, their weight was completely on the mat, and we were sitting next to them with them on the side of us. If we get over aggressive here and pull them on top of us, everything fails. Yeah, and so we're gonna enter this through X-guard. And we're all familiar with X-guard from Preet's class, or maybe before that, hopefully. So we're in X-guard. Yeah, no problem. So from here, I'm gonna switch to an underhook X. And I immediately want to start turning her knee towards my belly button, okay? And so in wrestling, we do like a long arm, short arm for a body lock. And so we always have our body lock sheeted to one side like this, creating this structure. So I have my short arm is gonna go to my hip, my long arm goes around the body or the leg in this scenario, and we create this nice kind of perfect square. That's what I want. And I always want to use the knuckle of my wrist to bite things, right? I want the knuckle of this wrist to be just below her knee pit at the top of her calf. And that's really important because as she pulls her leg out from that, I'm going to pack the muscle of the calf downward and it locks her leg to me. If I grab on top of her calf, it'll make the technique easier for me to pummel my leg through, but the reality is her leg will be gone every time. Yeah, and so it's really important I'm nice and high. So I go up nice and high, I stop my wrist right here. So my thumb is kind of tracing around her knee, and I get my gable grip from there. So now I have a nice strong shoulder shrug and an elbow pinch on the outside here. All right, and now if she tries to run away from this, I should be really locked into her. All right, the difference between this and this is substantial. All right, the exact same pull, go ahead, and I have a bite. Here I lose everything. Okay, so it's really important. I think about trying to carve down and then pack her knee really tight into me. Yeah? So from here, we have three of the components we need. We have our arms and our inside leg in the right position. All I have to do is get this knee off of my chest to the mat, and this leg has to pummel. Okay? So, nice and tight. I'm going to step. I'm going to shrimp. Then I'm going to step through. And now we got to backside particularly from X guard. Right? From here, all I want us to do is take our hands. They're already in a gable grip. That gable grip turns to this grip right here. Right? So I go from a gable. My top side hand stays how it is. My bottom side hand's going to go back of the hand to the palm. And then this top hand is going to lace underneath her shin and grab my own shin. So, we have X guard. Right? We switch to an underhook. Right away, I'm going to carve that knee, turning her knee to me. Yeah? I'm going to extend, step, hip out, step through. I have my grip. I go palm together. I slide this through, and I grab like this. I'm keeping her leg really bent from here by hugging my own shin. Does that make sense? It's fucking easy. White belt 101. Boom. Let's try that. All right, do it.
Yep. Nice and tight in here. Yep, elbow in tight. Yeah, yeah. Have this tight. And then I turn it to you can't escape.
So I think that what happens with this technique especially is we tend to overthink it a little bit, right? We make things more complicated. We try to do more jiu-jitsu than what's necessary. And so minimize your activity. And a lot of what I do involves me moving around my opponent and not moving my opponent. So he can do whatever he wants, and it's my job to just kind of be this annoying, like, chipmunk climbing on him all around. He's like, trying to grab me, can't grab me. That's me. Yeah? So let the person fall to the ground, cut your angle, and then kind of snake your body around theirs. A couple good questions I had. If I were to... actually, first things first. This is such an underutilized technique, right? This right here. And everybody always relaxes here. And this is what when I do this in live rolls and in competition, this really is the crux of everything. Yeah? And so as I go to make my switch to the backside, I have to maintain this really aggressive bite here. Okay? If I relax here in any way, the leg is gone. Right? Any decent grappler knows that they have to get out of that. It's a bad entanglement. So the grip switch is so important because as I make my pummel, right, I'm going to drive this hand towards my chest and become really heavy on the back of her knee pit. If I relax this, Then it becomes much easier to pummel this leg through, but it's not realistic. The technique is gone, okay? So as I make my switch, get this, yes? As I make my pommel under, and I start making my switch, here is really important. I can use my head to help her stop backstepping, right? If I keep her ankle here, it's really hard to backstep. So now I have her knee and her heel pinned, and she might blow her own knee just from backstepping. If I relax this, then she's safe. Okay? So, monitor here. When I make my switch to this kind of butterfly hands, I have to squeeze the clamping hand really heavy with my top hand. Okay? So now she still has a hard time escaping. But I have a very hard time getting my left arm straight. And it should be that way. Okay? When I start making my pummel through, I'm pulling, everything's tight. The reason I go to this grip here first and not straight to the heel is because I want to keep her ankle pinned to her butt. I want to keep her contracted as much as possible. She will backstep if I don't move my bottom leg out the back door and move to here. Right? Now it's very hard to backstep. Right? My weight's holding her hip to the mat, or her hip down through her outside knee. Okay? So now I can start making my circle. But notice the whole time my right hand is still in the same spot. I'm still holding it here nice and tight. From here, I can let go of my shin and create my circle. All right? The big thing here is this is the same thing we just did. Right? With the same triangle, only this is now her shoulder. Now it's her butt. It was her shoulder. This is her hand. And that's her elbow. It's the same braking mechanics. The key thing for me here is how much flexion I put in her foot. Okay? If I push her toes down without any added pressure, that feels terribly uncomfortable. Yeah? If I, like, point your toe, she points her toe, it's really hard to get a break. Okay? If I drive her toes to the mat, the break is much more powerful. Her heel becomes bigger. I have a better place to clamp, and everything gets tighter. Okay? And like I said before, I bring everything into the submission, and then I expand. The more I contract, and the more I get rid of joints by locking things together, the less I have to expand. Right? So on a heel hook, the heel grip is less important than the toe grip. Right? So my armpit and my lat is doing all of the work here. I'm going to bring my elbow down to my hip and start turning. Okay? When I'm here, she's not going to backstep any longer. Right? And if she does, my downward pressure will win over her backstep every time. It's not really possible for her to connect her feet. If I'm here, and now she puts her right foot on top of her left foot, she can safely backstep, even if I have a heel cuff. Right? Not ideal for her, but she can. So it's really important I keep that downside pressure. Yeah? So. Yeah? You'll feel a huge difference, guys. I promise most people, when you push their toes to the mat, or you push their foot into a flexed foot, that's when they tap. Because this pressure is so much more than this pressure, okay? What we're doing for a heel hook is, can I see your foot? All right? It's possible to do this and heel hook her. Yeah? Like, I could do that if I was really strong and she let me do it, okay? I can also grab her, just her heel. Okay? If I think about it, her heel now is a 2-inch longer lever than this. So the mechanical pressure I have from this is more. Now if I flex her foot and push from her toes, I have like a big steering wheel. So I have a longer lever, which creates more force to brake. So if she ballerina toes to defend, I'm stuck with only a small lever to try to rotate the heel hook. If I boot her, now I can push with my back and create the pressure from there, okay? If I continue to rotate, she'll always step over. She has to. So what I want to do is I want to build enough pressure here that I can isolate the movement and then push the hip. As I push my hips into her knee, that's what causes the rotation, right? So my back is blocking her ball of her foot and her instep, and my hips are gonna push this way, right? So I don't wanna rotate her over because her hip will come into play, right? The second I start to do this, her hips move, and she can keep rotating, keep rotating, keep rotating, yeah? If I block all this out, and I push this direction, it's much harder to rotate, yeah? So think about your hooks as being like a knee bar, like a side of a knee bar break, and less about a heel rotation, okay? So let's see if we can find the exact same X guard entry, and then keep them on the side. Nice tight control, butterfly grip, pass that thing through, start cheating to your inside position so you're facing belly down, cup the heel, take all the slack out of the line, and then add a small hip pressure. But really try to think about getting that tap from just the driving of the toes to the mat without adding any extra hip pressure. Try that first, and then if you can't get a tap there, then add minimal pressure to the knee, and then you'll have enough to break. Don't break. Cool? All right, go do that.
Here.
Okay, so where are we struggling? Give me a problem, I can solve it.
So with keeping the opponent from back step.
Yeah. That really is like the crux of the whole thing, right? Is getting them to not backstep. I like leg locks a lot. I don't play 50-50. I don't want any part of my jiu-jitsu to be 50-50. Like, that's not good odds. All right? I want to be in control the whole time. And so I have to avoid that at all costs. And it really comes down to how quickly I commit to going belly down. Yeah? And so I think what happens is we will often set up our technique, and as we are starting to hip out, we still want to be like manhandling people, right? And we want to really try to pull them on top of us too aggressively. And it has to be like a really, really loose escape. And so one thing they'll do, they'll try to grab this leg and keep it from stepping over. And that's why I go to the mat, right? I kind of push them around, but I want to push them that direction as much as I possibly can, right? That keeps them from being quite so available for the back step, yeah? The more the top player is next to me, the easier the back step is. The farther they are away from me, now that's a much harder back step from there. Does that make sense? Right? So, I mean, if my opponent is like right here on this line, and I'm trying to backstep over them, well, that's a pretty easy, safe backstep. Here, much more challenging. Yeah? And so think about really trying to push them away from you and getting as on the side of them as possible. It's really, really important. And then it really becomes, I want to almost put my weight on top of their leg immediately. Yeah? And this is where I find the most struggles with the positioning. All right, as I commit to this, like I can see the back now, and this is where I want to be. I'm going to push her kind of that way first. I'm going to move. All right? And so now it's more difficult to backstep immediately. Yeah? And if she does, I have this leg still that can stop her from backstepping. Right? So she goes to backstep, and I catch it. And so I have this to move myself to get in the right orientation, but I can also step on the back of her knee pit to help me from, to stop her from backstepping. But ultimately, what I'm looking to do is get to my position and be here. All right? Now, as she goes to backstep, I can turn my hips into her. Right? I still have control over her knee with my bottom side arm here. So I can pull it. Yeah? If I pull it all the way to the near side here, now it's even a stronger break for me. Right? And I think if you just watch the last ADCC, the West Coast trials, this is what Keith Currier did in the finals. Is he set up his back step, or I'm sorry, set up his K-guard entry into the backside 50-50. He maintained that position for probably 10 seconds, where Gabriel Sosa was just kind of standing there defending like this. Yeah? So if you go to like a knee post, like a combat base. So Keith entered, and he was right here. Yeah? And so as long as the opponent can keep her butt on her heel, she's in pretty good shape. Yeah? They started to scramble and keep immediately roll towards the inside, right? So if you look at this technique here, they went this way. And here was the break. Right? And so if I continue to move myself towards a belly down position, it defeats the back step relatively easily. One of the struggles that I have found is it's fairly aggressive, right? And so I'll find that when I travel and I use this technique on friends and at camps or at gyms, I have to be really careful. If I compete, as soon as I leg lace over, I'm immediately forcing a belly down positioning, and I'm trying to break immediately. Yeah, and so like I have to be aware of that. But the back step will kill it every time, you know. And if that happens for me, I race my inside leg to an 80-20 position. Are you familiar with that? Yeah. So all it means is I have my inside knee line cleared, and then that buys me either an escape or I'm able to more safely attack the heel hook from there, right? So step over for back. Right? So we're here, and as she goes to step over, my knee line has to just drop to the inside, right? And so now my knee is safe from her. If she's able to regain the knee line, and then now we're back into a 50-50. If I drop my knee below hers, now we're in 80-20. I'm in a much safer position from here. Yeah? Okay, so all the same concepts. Basically the exact same technique, only we're gonna do it from K-guard, okay? We probably shouldn't do this. It's a whole nother seminar, but it's fun, and everything is very similar, okay? If you feel frustrated and you can't quite figure this part out, feel free to rep out the X-guard entry. That's totally okay, right? Play with what you can play with and see if you can problem solve the problems you're having. If you feel comfortable in moving on, then move on, and just make it sure it's your lesson. Yeah? Don't feel obliged to do what I'm showing. Do what you feel good at and make it better from there. So for the K-guard, we're starting from closed guard. And I'm gonna go to like a limp knee position. So I always K-guard towards my right. So I'm gonna bring my right arm under and my right knee to the mat. Like here. So this is very similar to our X-guard. When I first learned this, the gym I was at called it Body X. Because it looks like X-guard on the body. Yeah? So it's really, really, really the same thing. So all I'm gonna do now is push my opponent towards my butt and towards their outside leg. Everything else is the same, right? I lace my leg over, I create space, I figure 4, move to my bottom side positioning, hit my break. So it's very, very, very similar. The X-guard is much easier to see if you're standing up. Right, so as far as learning it, the X-guard is the easier way to learn it. When it comes time to sparring it and the practicality, the X-guard is less functional than the K-guard, right? So the more space I can take away from the technique, the better it's gonna be. So I underhook, I will always come down my butt crack to underhook, right? So I credit card myself and it always fits. So now I'm going right between her legs, I'm knee pulling, and I limp out. Right, now I'm here, nice and tight. The exact same long arm, short arm grip, nice and tight from here. I'm really strong because my knees are tucked to my chest. So if she tries to pressure into me, I usually will win that battle. All right, once I have my position, I keep myself on the side of my opponent. I step my foot to the ground if I need to. If not, I can just swing it. I can use my inside leg to kick her shin open or her leg open, get to my figure 4. As I go to my pummel, I'm already looking to keep her belly down. If she chooses to go with the motion and go this direction, I'm just gonna finish from a topside break. Here. The break is the exact same. One more time or are we good? One more time. All right, cool, let's go. Close guard, credit card, limp knee, tight bite. Push her away, step, or just swing. Come through. Figure 4 your legs. Everything else is the same. Explode their knee and walk away. Too easy, right? Let's do it, go! The really cool thing about both of these entries from X guard and for K guard is we can utilize these without using leg locks if we want to. Okay? Don't be afraid to use that matrix back step as just a way to get on top of somebody, right? So I have big guys who say, this is not for me, or guys who just don't want to do leg locks at all. We can still use that minor reap behind the butt to kick somebody off of us and then elevate from there, right? So we have lots of options from that. When we go to use our breaking mechanics for every submission we do, if I move and gain no tension, then I've moved for no reason, okay? So if I have an arm bar and I lay back, and I lay back, and I lay back, and I lay back, and there's no added tension to the arm bar, then I've moved for no reason, okay? So make sure we always bring our bodies to the submission, get rid of all of the slack, and then add the expansion when everything's tight. Whether it's an ankle lock or a rear naked choke, it's all the same principles here. So for our heel hook, if I just sloppily grab the heel and start rotating, I might get a novice to tap, right? And what happens a lot when I compete is the first time I ever competed in an event that was professional that allowed heel hooks, I was so scared of getting heel hooked, and the kid heel hooked me, and I looked at him and he didn't know how to do it. And like, he thought he did. He really thought he was good at heel hooks because everyone in his training room tapped. Because they were being smart, they tapped early. But he never actually broke anyone, ever. And so he was pulling like crazy, and it was almost comical, because it was like, oh, this is not a real thing, you know? And so, because he was never focusing on those little minor details that make it work at the end, right? So make sure we're training really, really well. And that applies to all of our submissions. If we are training and our training partner is tapping simply to reset the position because they forgot, then it does everyone a disservice. Right? Make sure we're being legitimate in our submissions and being legitimate in our tapping. There's a very fine line between keeping yourself safe and harming and mentally harming your training partners, right? Meaning you let them think that their shit is awesome and it's not, whether it's any kind of submission, right? So find that balance, please. Any last questions? We don't have time anyway, so cool. Can we get a photograph? And then we'll have open mat. Thank you, guys.